Hi, my name is Jordan. I want to welcome you to the Church at Visalia online campus. We have a great message for this evening. During the service at any time, if you have any questions or comments or just want to talk, join our live chat on the right side of the screen, and one of our service hosts would love to assist you in any way they can. Here's Pastor Kevin with tonight's message.
Who here, when your parents were young, your parents said stupid things to you? Your parents said things, you're like, your mom or your dad said some things to you that you said when you was a youngster, when I'm a parent, I'm never going to say that to my kids. Has that ever happened before where your parents said something, you're like, whenever I get old, whenever I get gray, whenever I get to be a dad or a mom, I'm never saying that. And then, and then you get older and it just kind of happens by osmosis. It just happens, and we start turning into our mom and our dad and saying really odd, weird things when you stop and think about it. You know, the child wants to mow the yard and you might not really want them to, and they're going to be a little bit young, but okay, go ahead, but hey, if you cut your foot off, don't come crying to me, right? I mean, that's an odd thing to say, right? Or hey, listen. Hey, buddy, you want a spanking? Do you want a spanking? I mean, think about that for a second. Do you want a spanking? What is your child going to say when you ask them, do you want a spanking? What's he going to say? Well, yes, Father, I've considered the options, and I do believe I would like you to remove your belt and hit me in the gluteus maximus with it 3 times, just hard enough to make me cry and think. That's not, what's he going to say? He's not going to say yes. No, that's an odd thing to say, right? Or, hey, you better stop crying or I'm going to give you something to cry about. I mean, I want you to stop crying, so I'm going to put you in timeout so that you will cry. But we find ourselves saying really, really odd things. In fact, things that we said to ourselves, I'll never say that. I'll never do that as a parent. But then we end up, unfortunately, many times doing them. And that's sometimes also what happens if we're not careful. That very same thing can happen in our marriages. That when we get married, we find that special someone, we say to ourselves, I'll never let this small thing get in the way of my love. Or I'll never even think about not being with her anymore. I'll never leave them. And when we get that special someone in our life and we fall in love and we're in love and we're in love and we don't care who knows it, we say things to ourselves and promises in our mind, but if we're not careful, we end up doing those very same things. I mean, I don't know that I've ever met with anybody in marriage counseling before, and when I'm counseling them and they'd say, you know what, I'm just telling you, in the next 3 to 5 years, Pastor Kevin, I really hope, maybe about 5 years from now, I really hope that me and her can go through a really ugly divorce. That's my goal. I'd like that. We don't say that in the marriage counseling. We don't say, hey, you see this special someone right here, the person I'm getting ready to just totally give my heart to. I'm really hoping, I'm looking forward to the day. I know it's probably going to take 10 years, but I can't wait to get to the day 10 years from now when her and I go out on a date and we're all alone and we have nothing to say to each other and we stare off in the abyss. I can't wait for that day to come. We never say that in marriage counseling. In fact, we say to ourselves, that will never happen to me. I'll never leave you. I'll never even think about it. I can't wait to be with you. I'm so excited. We want we want our marriage to be incredible, but if we're not careful, what can very easily happen is life. And life hits. Just like when you're a kid and you say, I'll never be like my dad, I'll never do this. All of a sudden life hits and we morph into something that we really didn't want to be. And in our marriages, and for those of you that are single, one day looking forward to being married, or maybe you used to be married and now you're single again and then looking forward to that again, we got to guard our heart against life and against misconceptions that can very easily pull us into something extremely dangerous. It pulls us into a rut. And a rut isn't an overnight thing. A rut is it's a little dig here and it's a little there, and you're doing the same thing over and over, the same thought patterns, the same actions, and next thing you know, you've got yourself in a rut. And a rut is basically just a grave with the ends knocked out. It's dead. And it's boring and it's stale, or maybe it's ugly, but it never changes. And we got to guard ourselves against this, because here's the thing. Nobody ever wakes up in one day and says, hey, honey, I've been thinking about it. Today's the day. Just woke up this morning, started thinking about it. I think today we should get divorced. Never thought about it before until today, but today's the day. That never happens. It never happens where it's like, you know what? I think today, starting at, maybe about 5:30, we should start living a mundane life and do the same thing over and over again, probably for the next 20 years. How's that sound? About 5:30 today. You ready to get going with that? That's not how it happens. It just sneaks up on us. It sneaks up on us. And before you know it, we're thinking things we never thought. We're saying things we thought we'd never say. We're doing things we thought we'd never do. And it's just mundane and stale. And here's the good news today. In fact, I think this is great news. This is God news. Is we don't have to live like that. You don't. We don't. If you're single and when you get married, and I know in single folks, man, for the most part in our culture today, marriage is something of a bygone era that's broken. So why in the world would I want to get married? Well, my mom and dad have been married 3 times. It's a broken system. My grandpa can't stand my grandma, and they just stayed married because of the kids. And many times single folks have this idea, this misconception, I don't want to get married because it's a bygone era. I don't want to get married because it's broken. Listen, marriage is such an incredible thing when it's done God's way. So if you're single in the room, man, I want to give you some hope today. Marriage is not something from a bygone era. Marriage is not something that's broken. Marriage is something incredible. And if you're married today, I want to give you some hope. Husbands and wives, listen, we don't have to live like this. We don't have to wake up and it's 25 years later, it's 35 years later, and we're wondering, where'd my life go? Because our life is sitting right across the table from us at dinner. It's our spouse. And so today, that's what we're going to do. Is today we're going to talk about 4 things that you have to do to get out of our rut and stay out of our rut in marriage. 4 things that I said 3, but it's actually 4. The Lord laid a 4th one on my heart, amen? So we changed it. Is 4 things that you have to do. These are must-dos. These are not optional. That you have to do to get out of a rut, if you are in a rut in marriage, and then stay out of a rut. Now here's the thing. Who here's ever drove down and you've been driving down the road, haven't been paying attention? Not you, but maybe you've seen somebody who's driving with their cell phone at the same time they're driving. We don't do that, right? But maybe you were, and you got yourself in a ditch. And when you get yourself in a ditch, what do you got to do at first? You got to pull hard. You got to turn real hard at first. And once you turn real hard, then you can get back in the middle and just kind of keep things going. Now, some of you are just kind of heading towards the ditch. You're heading towards the rut. If that's the case, you're going to have to turn kind of hard and get back in the middle and just balance these next 4 things out. Some of you are down in the ditch. You're down in the rut. And man, you're going to have to make some drastic changes real quick to get things back where they need to be. But on any case, you can do this. You don't have to live in a marital rut. So here's 4 things. The first one is this, is you need to see marriage how God sees it. See marriage how God sees it. Andy Stanley is a great pastor out of Atlanta. He says this line, And he says that when we see as God sees, we are more likely to do as God says. When we see things as God sees, we're more likely to do the things that God says to do. And when we do that, everything changes. Who here's ever had, you don't have to raise your hand, but who here's ever had this unbelievably embarrassing moment? I know we all have, and they're all different. I've had a lot in my day. One time, here's the thing. Most of my embarrassing moments honestly have to do with one thing: me keeping my head down. Whenever I have my head down, I just get in trouble. I remember first day of 6th grade, very awkward, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade middle school, McConaughey Middle School in Bunker Hill, Indiana. And I've got my map out of where the classrooms are, and I've got my map out of where the bathrooms are and everything, and I've got my head down. And I've got my head down, and I'm watching, and I'm looking at the map, and I'm watching, I'm trying to figure out where I am, but I'm not looking up, I'm just looking down. And all of a sudden, oh, here's the restroom, and I go into the bathroom, and I look up, and I'm in the girls' bathroom. First day of 6th grade, I walk up, a girls' bathroom, head back down, and out I run. That was embarrassing. Another time, I'm getting groceries out of our van, and I'm not super tall, but I'm kind of tall, and our van door doesn't go up all the way in the back, and I had my head down. I was in a hurry. I have my head down, and I go to get the groceries, and boom, I hit my head right on the edge of the van door. Did not speak the dark language, however, I did think it. And so, I had my head down, pain came, I had my head down, I had to have my eyes in the right place. I walk into the girls' bathroom. One time I'm playing basketball with my Uncle Jim in Kokomo, Indiana, and this guy's he's a baller, he's good. And so we're playing basketball, and he invites me to go to the park with the fellas. I mean, these guys are all like men. I was, a little maybe 8th grade, 7th grader. I get invited to go to the park to play with men, full-size men, 25, 30 years old, 6'6", muscular guys. Some of them played college, and I'm like, man, this is my chance. So finally, I get called to go in. Some guy gets tired and says, hey, little fella, spell me. So I go in, and man, I'm all excited. I got my tube socks pulled up high. I got my shirt tucked in, my Michael Jordan jersey. I'm ready to roll. And man, I'm playing basketball, and I'm running up and down the court. Of course, nobody's giving me the ball. I'm just running up and down the court trying to, look good and play defense and all that stuff. And I remember I'm running down the court on a fast break, and I got my head down, and I'm thinking, man, I'm doing so good. I bet I look really good running. My Uncle Jim's probably watching me, and I got my head down, and all of a sudden, boom! And I ran right into the metal basketball pole, the pole that the hoop was on. Ran right out of bounds, right into it. Head down, eyes in the wrong spot. Now, if I'd have had my eyes up, I would have seen girls' bathroom, don't go there, this is the right way to go. If I'd had my eyes up, I would have seen this is how I should act when I'm coming into the van. If I'd had my eyes up looking at the right stuff, I would have never gone into the girls' bathroom. I would have never hit my head. I would have never ran face first. In junior high, you're going through puberty. My nose was all nose anyway. Then I run into the poles like I'm like freaking Pinocchio, just huge. I'd have never had that if I'd have had my eyes in the right place. And where we get jacked up in life many times, and especially with the important things, is we get messed up when we have our eyes in the wrong place. Because whatever you see is how you respond. And so, when it comes to marriage, if you want to get out of the rut and stay out of the rut and stay happily married and all those things, is we have to see marriage how God sees it. Not how culture... See, many times what happens is we have our eyes as single people or married people, we have our eyes on the wrong thing as it pertains to marriage. We're letting culture dictate to us what marriage should be like. We're letting some marital guru on Dr. Phil's show dictate how our marriage should be. We're letting this magazine over here or Uncle so-and-so dictate how our marriage should be or what our thoughts on it should be. And when that happens, when we have our head down and we have our eyes in the wrong place, we're going to walk places we shouldn't go. We're going to get pain that we should never feel. And we're going to get very embarrassed in front of people that we want to impress. That's what happens when we look in the wrong place. And so we've got to see marriage as God sees it. Now, the Bible says in Malachi chapter 2, verses 13 through 14, this is a letter to the Jewish nation, and he's kind of getting on them during this part. He's actually kind of giving them a spiritual spanking. And he says, another thing that you do. You ever had your dad, just start reaming you out? Now, son, you've been doing this, and another you've been doing this, and another thing you've been doing. Well, that's where he's going on to the other thing now. The other thing that you do is you flood the Lord's altar with tears. You weep and wail because He no longer looks on favor with your offerings or accepts them with pleasure from your hands, and you ask why. Now, let's stop right there. What's going on here is the people of Israel are coming to the temple and they're weeping and they're crying and they're throwing offerings to God and they're wondering, God, why aren't you smiling on me? God, why isn't my life changing? God, why aren't you happy with me? And you're so sad because I'm not happy with you, and now you ask why. Let's keep reading. It says, you ask why. It's because the Lord is the witness between you and the wife of your youth. You've been unfaithful to her, though she is your partner, the wife of your marriage covenant. God's saying, listen, the reason that life ain't going good, and the reason, I know it's bad English there, but I'm from Indiana. The reason life ain't going good is because you are not paying attention to the wife of your youth. You're living a selfish life. You're not living in unity. You're not living in the marriage covenant. Covenant. You see, our culture and our legal system in the United States of America views marriage, a bond between a man and a woman, as a legal contract. It's a contract. You do your part, I'll do my part, and if ever you don't do your part, the contract's broken, I can get out of the contract, you can get out of the contract. God does not say you've forsaken the wife of your youth and you've broken your marital contract. He says marriage covenant. Now, a covenant is so much more than a contract. A covenant is something that's not broken. It's something that's permanent, that God has a covenant with us. That through His Son Jesus Christ, when we come into Him and He comes into us, He gives us Himself to such the extent that He changes us and we are no longer the same. And throughout this process called sanctification, God walks with us. It's a covenant. You drop the ball, buddy, but I'm not leaving. And you say to God, I'm not leaving. It's a covenant. And that's how it is with marriage. You see, we see marriage many times as, well, she ain't keeping her end of the bargain. He ain't keeping his end of the bargain. And all of a sudden, because culture has trained us, we start to think things like, maybe I'd be better getting on out this deal. But that's not how God sees it. God sees it as a covenant, a permanent covenant. Even if you drop the ball, I ain't going anywhere. Even if you mess up, girl, I'm still with you. Yeah, I know you're not supplying my needs, but you know what? I'm going to start supplying yours. Marriage covenant. That's how God sees it. And when we see marriage as something that's not easily gone into and easily gone out of, we realize the weightiness of it and the beauty of it, the true love of it. It totally changes our perspective and our value of that other person. This isn't a contract like we're leasing this facility and one day we'll leave the facility. No. This is a covenant. I love you, you love me. We're in this thing together. Now, so the first thing you got to do to get out of the rut, is I'm convinced of it, is you've got to start seeing marriage differently. Now, many times people who are getting ready to get married view marriage as a covenant. Now, single people, I just want to talk to single people for a minute. Sometimes single people, especially Christian singles, view marriage as that's my chance to start having sexual intercourse. Because, man, I've been told my whole life, no huggy, kissy, touchy, and rubby. If you do, I mean, you're going to hell quick. So stay pure, stay holy, don't go there, don't touch that, no. But as soon as I put a ring on it, hello, it's go time, right? And that's the chance that I have to start having sex. And single guys, if I go to a single guy and I'm like, hey, man, after you get married, what's your marital goals? What's the goals that you have for your marriage? What do you want to do after you get married? He's like, I don't know. All right, let's just make it simple. What y'all going to do on your honeymoon? And all of a sudden, this cat gets a big old smile. Well, you know what Daddy's going to do on his honeymoon. And I'm like, brother, but what are you going to do the other 23 hours, 58 minutes, and 16 seconds? Because, homie, you ain't that good, all right? You ain't that good, okay? So, what are you going to do after you have sex? What are you going to do after you have sex? That's a long day, fellas, after that. So what are you going to do? Because many times, young people, when we come into matrimony, we think, man, especially guys. Girls are a lot different, but guys are thinking, man, I'm going to make love every day and twice on Sunday. No, you're not. Okay, you're not. You're not. And if you do, write a book about it and I'll buy it. Okay, so no, you're not going to have intercourse that much. And all the married folks are laughing because we know how ignorant that thought is. That there's this thing called life. And yes, sexual intimacy is a gift from God, and it's beautiful, and it's amazing, and it's a huge part of our marital relationship. But marriage is not a contract, and marriage is also not just sex. It's something so much more beautiful. It's an image of God's relationship with mankind on planet Earth. That God has entered into a covenant with His bride, and He's not going to break this vow. And it's so beautiful to see how He, as the husband, has surrendered and died to Himself for the bride, the church. And how much beautiful the bride is because she loves and surrenders to her husband, God. And when we walk that out on planet Earth as husband and wife, it is so beautiful and so fulfilling. And you can't do that if you view it as a contract. Now, those of you who have been married and divorced and now remarried, I'm not throwing any stones. I'm saying from here on out, you've made a covenant. Move and walk in that way. And for those of you that are single, don't be thinking contract, and also don't be thinking hubba hubba come to bubba. Be thinking something beautiful. See it as God sees it. Number two, I could preach on that for a while. Number two is don't let excuses steal what we have. Don't let excuses steal what we could have. I'll say it that way. Now, everybody, listen, I don't know you all that well, but I guarantee you, everybody in this room, if I was to give you a piece of paper and say, write down what you need to do to lose 20 pounds, everybody in this room would know exactly what to write. You would all say, I need to lower my caloric intake. I need to up my proteins and lower my fatty carbs. I need to drink anywhere between a half a gallon to a gallon of water a day. And I need to do 30 minutes of aerobic exercise and maybe twice a week do some free weightlifting or resistance training. We all would have some answer like that. We all know what it takes to lose 20 pounds. Now, who here's just lost 20 pounds the last 6 months? A couple have. And the reason that you did is why? You did what it took. And the rest of us who know what it takes to lose 20 pounds but haven't lost 20 pounds, even though we know we may want to, is the reason that we haven't is because we have let excuses keep us from what we could have had. And it's the same way in marriage. In marriage, you can have this covenant. In marriage, you can have peace, you can have love, you can have joy, you can have intimacy, you can have fulfillment. You can have all these things. It's all there at the tip of our fingers, but many times we don't have it, not because we can't. We don't have it because we just make excuses. And here's just some quick excuses that we make sometimes. The first one is he's not a Christian. I'm married to a guy who's not a Christian. The Bible says this in 1 Peter 3, 1 through 2. It says, wives, in the same way, submit yourselves to your husband, so that if any of them do not believe in the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of the wives, when they see the purity and reverence of your lives. Now, single ladies, when you read this passage about, being married to an unbeliever, if you are a single Christian girl, this passage is not a license for you to go out and marry someone who's not a Christian. You should stay equally yoked with the man. If you're a believer, you should marry a believer. Because what happens with Christian girls sometimes is they see this guy, and man, he looks great in a pair of jeans, and he's got a job, and he treats me like a queen and all this stuff, but he's not walking with Jesus. 1 Peter says if I marry him, he'll turn his ways and he'll come to Christ. Maybe. He may end up going to heaven, maybe not, but you might go through a lot of hell on the way. So this isn't a license to marry an unbeliever. This is a passage talking to Christian ladies who are currently married to someone who's not a Christ follower. And what it's saying there is that we should, well, not we, I'm not a lady, but as ladies, is that you should love your husband as Christ loved the church, surrender to your husband, serve your husband, not berate him and do this and do that and change this and change that, and the Bible says this and the Bible says that. No, just live it. Just live it. And as you love your husband and you live Christ before your husband, know that God's a good God, and eventually He's going to soften that husband's heart, and that husband's going to come to Jesus, and you're going to walk in full marriage covenant together as Christ followers. But sometimes we can make this excuse, well, she's not a believer and I'm a believer, he's not a believer and I'm a believer, so man, we're just so different and we can never really get along, and he sees things so different than I do, and we let that drive a wedge between us in our intimacy. No. Don't let that be an excuse. Don't let that be an excuse at all. Now, the Bible goes on to say in verse 7, in 1 Peter 3, verse 7 says, husbands, in the same way, be considerate. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm messing up my order here. The next lie that we tell ourselves is, I don't understand her. I don't understand her. One of the lies we say is they're not a believer, so that's going to bring some distance in our relationship. Another one is I just don't understand her. Well, here's the thing, fellas. Let me just help you out on this one. You never will, okay? You never will understand her. She's a female, you're a male. I mean, ladies many times don't understand themselves, right? I mean, why are you crying? I don't know. They don't even know why they're crying sometimes. And that's not a slam, it's just guys, you're not going to understand her, okay? The Bible says in 1 Peter 3:7, husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect as the weaker partner and as heirs with you in the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers. You're never going to understand her, but if you will be considerate towards her and serve her and think about her and her needs, what will happen is your understanding of her will open up to a greater degree. Her understanding and openness of you will open up to a greater degree, and you'll begin to get out of that rut and start having the life that you actually want. But you're never going to completely understand her. And a lot of guys would say, but she doesn't understand me. I mean, my girl just doesn't understand me, man. She doesn't know what I need. She's not fulfilling my needs. She just doesn't get me. After all these years, she just doesn't get me. Listen, here's the deal. God never commanded her to understand you. There's no passage in the Scriptures that says, woman, understand your man. I get an amen from my wife. Come on now, Kevin. Preach it, brother. Wish my husband was here. Amen, right? So, God never commanded her to understand you. But here's the truth of the matter, fellas. You're not that hard to figure out, okay? Ladies are like this beautiful, amazing 3,000-piece puzzle that you got to really work on. And guys, we're just not that difficult, right? Guys, I don't even know you. And I guarantee you, I flat out guarantee you, man, if your wife cooks you food, is intimate with you on a regular basis, and says, honey, you can have the remote control, you're good. It ain't that hard, right? It's not that difficult for you. So don't go all high and mighty like she don't understand me. She does understand you. She does understand you. But guys, don't get ahead of myself, but we've got to work hard to pull her in. Ladies, work hard to pull them in so that they'll want to understand, so they'll want to comprehend, so they'll want to serve. But don't make this, well, she just doesn't understand me, and you put this wall up. Well, that's not going to help any. Fellas, you need to start comprehending her, and you need to start serving her needs, so that you always get whatever you give. When you serve her first, she then will begin to serve you. And now you're starting to get out of that rut. Okay? The third thing, another passage that it says in verse 7, And it says for husbands to treat them with respect as the weaker partner. Now, a lot of times ladies would read that and say, women's lib and the different things is that, well, God is such a chauvinist. He says to treat ladies like they're the weaker vessel. Well, here's what it's saying. It's not saying that you're more mentally weak or emotionally weak or spiritually lower. That's not the point. The point of this one is that your husband can bench press more than you. That's what it's saying. And if he can't bench press more than you, keep that quiet. Don't talk about that. Keep that quiet. But there's roles that we play as men and there's roles that we play as women, and we should start to serve the other one. And when we serve the other one, we'll start to understand them more. And the walls will come down. But don't let the excuse of they don't understand me stop you. Another one is we're just so different. We're just so different. Well, yeah. Of course you are. You're a guy, she's a girl. He's a fellow, you're a lady. You are different. You have different wants, different needs, different desires. You should be different. And if you're not, that's probably not good. You should be different. Fellas, you're the man, she's the woman. She's beautiful, you're not, okay? She gets pedicures, you don't. And if you do, ask God to forgive you. I mean, get this fixed, okay? So, I'm teasing. Kind of teasing. But she's different than you. She takes a bath with candles, you get in the shower and scratch yourself. I mean, we're different. And that's good. And it's an absolute lie and a fallacy to say, well, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that because we're different. Well, that's what attracted you to him in the first place, or her in the first place, was that they gave something in the marriage that was different than what you could give. That's why we're together in the first place. Don't fall for the lie of, man, we can't be close because, man, they just don't understand me, and we're completely different. And another one is that we tell ourselves is we just don't have the same time that we used to have. We don't have time like we used to. Man, used to, before the kids came and before soccer practice and before football, before this and that, and I got the second job and this, and man, it was so much easier. Now, we just don't have time like we used to. Listen, that's an absolute lie, number one. There's still the same amount of minutes in a day. There's 168 hours in every week. When you first got married, it's 168 hours right now. We got the same amount of time. It just depends on how we're going to spend it. And that brings us to the third thing you got to do. The third thing you got to do is so important. And here's what it is you've got to get into the ebb and the flow of life. There's a certain ebb and flow of life. You got to breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Think about life. Everything in life that's living, everything in life that's growing, there's an in and there's an out. The lakes that are healthy, that aren't stagnant, there's an inflow, and then there's some form of an outflow. There's water that comes in, there's water that comes out. Where the thing gets jacked up is when all of a sudden there's just water coming in, but there's no outlet, there's going to cause a flood. And if there's just water coming out, it's going to be empty. It's got to be both. There's an in and there's an out. That's how the human body, we have food that comes into us, it feeds us, and then the energy is used out of us. There's the in and there's the out. And what happens is when we have too much in and not enough energy being used, we start to push out, right? And it's not as healthy. And there's heart problems and blood pressure. There's got to be in and out with food. Think about the human body as it comes to our life. Everybody do this right now. Go. Now, if you hold it, you're going to have troubles. Breathe it back out. That's life. In, out. Think about if all we did in life was breathe out. Yeah, it's trouble. Number one, it looks really weird. Number two, you're going to live long. What if all you did was breathe in? That same thing. Marriage is it's just like God made everything else. God made marriage, and because God made it, there's life in it. And because there's life in it, there's got to be the breathing in, and then there's got to be the breathing out. Now, we have a lot of breathing out in our life. We got to go to work every day. We've got bills to pay. We've got stresses in our life. The kids are growing up. We got to buy diapers. We're potty training. They're in school. They're in sports. We've got the in-laws, the outlaws, and the ex-laws. We've got all of our family issues. There's a lot of breathing out. And where we get in a rut and where we get in so much trouble in our marriage is when all we're doing is work, school, change diapers, potty training, work, school, kids got sports, they've got this, got to go here, got to go there, breathing out, breathing out, breathing out, breathing out, and we're suffocating our marriage. We have to have a in, something that brings life. What is the breath in your relationship? It doesn't have to cost a dime. It might be, maybe it doesn't, Maybe yours is getting up early and drinking a cup of coffee with your spouse for 5 minutes talking about the day. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's going out on a date. Maybe it's actually working together on a project. What are things that bring you life? You got to breathe in so you can breathe out. And where we're in a rut, and most of us, if we're in a rut today, it's because it's all breathing out, breathing out, breathing out, breathing out, and we're suffocating ourselves. Stop. Stop. There's a season for breathing out and a season for breathing in. Make sure you're doing the things to breathe in. And then you say, well, I can't because he don't understand me. And then the excuses come up. I like to do this, he likes to do that. That's when you become like Jesus and you find out what they like to do and you do it with them. You serve them, and then they'll start to serve you. Don't let excuses like we're not the same and we like different things or we're too busy keep you from breathing in. Because if you don't breathe in and go out on a date, if you don't breathe in and have a hobby together, maybe it's a friend of ours used to go antiquing with their spouse. So maybe it's bike riding, maybe it's going, it doesn't even matter what it is. You've got to have the breathe in. You got to fight for it. Fight for that just as much as we fight for all the other to-do list. Put this life-giving thing into your weekly to-do list just as much as kids' soccer practice. Because if we don't, we're just in the rut. But man, we got to turn hard. This week, what are those things that bring you life? And start doing those. Start doing them. Start doing them this week. Number 4, and we're going to close, is refuse to settle. Refuse to settle. We live in a culture that constantly settles. But when you read the scriptures, we hear stories of a God who doesn't settle, he overcomes. He doesn't settle, he overcomes. Think about the stories of the Bible. One of David and Goliath. David's up on the mountain. There's a Goliath, the big old giant down in the valley. And what does David do with his Goliath? He picks the right weapons. He runs down into the valley and he defeats his Goliath. He didn't talk with his Goliath. He didn't try and get a truce with his Goliath. He didn't try and just get by with him and, hey, buddy, you go back to your mountain and I'll go back to... He never settled. He never settled. He did what he had to do. He got what he needed to get. He did not settle. When it comes to the walls of Jericho, if you're familiar with that story, there's a city that God needed the people of Israel to infiltrate and get into. There's this giant wall around it. And God gives Joshua, the leader, a detailed step-by-step process of what to do to tear the walls down so they can have the city. What did Joshua do? He didn't settle. God said, march around the city 7 times. So he didn't march around it 5 and say, well, I guess it didn't work. No, he marched around it 7 times. He did exactly what God said, and the walls. He didn't settle for anything less than God's best. The walls are going to fall. And guys, we've got to have that same mentality in our marriages. We can't settle. Don't settle for tension in our marriage. Don't settle for unhappiness in our marriage. Don't settle for not being a servant to your wife and serving your spouse. Don't settle for anything less than God's best, because in God's Word, He shows you that you can have, yes you, yes me, we can have a marriage that is Christ-like, God-honoring, and causes a ripple effect in our families and in future generations. We can have this. So why would we settle for our Goliath down in the valley and just, oh, no, I don't really care if I get it. No. Do what you got to do. Change what you got to change. Your wife is too important. Your husband is too valuable. Your children are watching. Never settle for a rut. Never settle for dissension. Never settle for going to bed angry. Never settle for anything less than God's best. And for those of you that are single in the room, looking for a spouse, don't settle. Don't settle. Guys, don't settle for just any girl. Girls, don't settle for just any man. No. What is God's plan? What does God have? What is a good, godly man? And then go out and find that. And until you find that, keep on looking. And fellas, it's up to you to become that. You got to don't settle for anything less than being a good, godly man. I want to give you the best pickup line in the history of the world, fellas. Single guys, get your pen out. Are you ready? This is a good one. You go up to a girl, right here in Visalia, you go up to a girl, and you say your name, and then this is what you say. Hi, my name's so-and-so. I have a job, and I have money in my savings account. If you are 23 years old and you got a job and you got money in your savings account, buddy, you just lifted yourself up way above the rest of the fellows around here. And you became attractive. Fellas, you're not going to find Mrs. Right playing video games down in Grandma's basement all day. Get up, get on fire for Jesus, get a job, save money, and then all of a sudden you'll start looking pretty darn good to a female. Don't settle, guys, for being anything less than what God wants you to be. Girls, don't settle for morphing into something that culture says you got to dress this way or look this way or act this way or be this way to attract a guy. No. What does God say? Be a good, godly Proverbs woman that honors God, loves Jesus, loves people, has a servant's heart. And ladies, you won't be able to shake the guys away from you. Don't settle. As you're looking for a spouse, don't settle. When you're married, we can't settle. Because your man is way too valuable. I've said this before to you guys, but in closing, I love my family. Man, I love them. Sometimes I do good, sometimes I do really bad. But every day when I go to bed, I run a filter. I used to always do this. I still do. I run a filter through my mind, and it's this. What's the most important things in my life? And this is it. Did I do something to make God smile? Does Veronica know that she can love me and trust me? And was I the daddy to my 4 kids that they needed? And if the answer is yes to those 4, check it as a win. If the answer is no, we got a problem. So that's one of the gauges that I go by on success and failure. The other one is this. Statistics say that most likely the husband dies before the spouse. So most likely, unfortunately, I'm going to go on before Veronica. And if that would happen, one of my life goals is this, is that as my boys and my 2 daughters are standing by my wife, at me after I'm gone and in heaven, I want Veronica to be able to honestly say, kids, on June 30th, 1990, your dad said that he would. And he did. He did. That's a win for me. And I don't know what your win is, but my win has everything to do with my relationship with Jesus, my relationship with Veronica, my relationship with my kids. And far too often, I, as well as all of us. We know the valuable things, but we let all the other things keep us from the things that are most important. Today, don't do that anymore. Don't lie to ourselves anymore. Begin to do whatever you got to do to get out of that rut. Stop making excuses. And start doing whatever you got to change to breathe in so that you can breathe out. And when you do, I think at the end of our lives, it'll be good. Let's bow our heads and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you and praise you for your goodness and grace. And God, we ask today that you'd help us to take the words that we've said today and put them deep into our heart. And God, we ask that you would move in us, that you would move through us, that you would help our marriages become what you have died on the cross for them to be. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight at our online campus. Hope you enjoyed tonight's message. If you have any questions or would like to find out more about the things going on here at the Church at Visalia, check out our website, welcometothechurch.com. Have a great week.